Me no get the time for the hate and the bad energy. Got my mind on my money. Make you dance like broccoli. Steady green like broccoli. Steady on my grind, oh yeah, what they want telling me. Could deny my father.
Hello my angels and welcome back to the channel. It's your girl Kristen and today I'm gonna do something different. Today we're gonna talk about the books that I've read this year. Let me go get them. This isn't all of them, hold on. Now that I think about it, what books did I even read this year? Oh, I'm missing a few. I'm just missing one more. Oh, you know what, a tower? Oh, here it is. Looking at it, I'm actually so shocked that I read this many books this year. That's actually so crazy to me. I'm so proud of myself. So I'm gonna be using Goodreads. If you guys wanna follow me on Goodreads, my name is Kristen Olivia. Is that like my profile name? I'll put it up on the screen somewhere. Earlier this year, I think I started reading late last year, maybe the year before, can't remember. The book that got me into reading was, it was Colleen Hoover, Verity. I know, TikTok actually got me with this one. I started, I think, The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Didn't end up finishing. I'll probably finish next year because I'm thinking about it, the fact that I didn't finish the book. So this year, I made a goal of reading 10 books. I ended up reading 22 books, the 22 that you see behind me here, which is so crazy. Y'all, this was actually kind of expensive if you really think about it. Okay, let's just jump in. As I said, my goal was 10 books this year. I read 22. I'm going off of Goodreads because that's what I was using all year. I downloaded Fable because I saw it as like an ad or something like that. So I downloaded it just to see. I think I like Fable better, but for now, since I started on Goodreads, I'm gonna continue with Goodreads. Mind you, I was never necessarily like a strong reader. If I wasn't reading in high school for an assignment, I was just not reading anything. So this got me back into like adult reading, all that kind of stuff. So some of these things I rated very highly just because if I enjoyed the book, automatic 5 stars. If it made me laugh, cry, sad, happy, you get the point, automatic 5 stars. I actually hated one book this year because literally everything I felt like was 5 stars. The first book I started the book late last year, like November, I think. Never finished it, so I brought it into the new year. And for this book, actually, I rated it 4 out of 5 stars, which is a shocker. For the first book that I read this year is Things We Never Got Over. This book, I think when I read it, it threw me for a loop just because of the way it was written. It was written like with a southern type of twist to it. Literally the dialogue, everything about it, the characters, yada, yada, yada. You get the point. I read this so long ago, I can't even remember, which is kind of crazy to think. So yeah, this is about Knox and Naomi. She's a twin, she runs away to another city, yada, yada, yada. Her twin's actually evil. And it starts this whole like crime thing throughout the story. This is actually a series. So throughout the 3 books in the series, there's just an underlying like mystery to be solved, which I thoroughly enjoyed. Mind you, I'm not a pro at reviewing books. Okay, this is my first time. So if this sounds kind of crazy, it is unscripted, just jumping right in. This is what I thought of the book. If I could rate this again, I would rate it 4 stars, 3.5. I enjoyed this book. I think I would read it again, to be honest, with fresh eyes. And this book is 554 pages. So that is kind of crazy, and I ate up every single page in my opinion. So that was the first book I read this year, Things We Never Got Over. I should mention with Things We Never Got Over, it is a romance. It's like grumpy man, super sunshine girl, crime, you get the point. I liked it. It was a fun romance, it made me smile. So the second book of the year that I read is Lisa Jewell's None of This Is True. This is a thriller from what I could remember. Oh, I love the way that the pages, I'm not too sure if you can see with the light, but do you see how the pages are a little like jaggedy? I absolutely loved feeling that on my fingers, and I think that's why I really liked collecting physical books. It's because I like turning the pages. I like putting my bookmark in and turning it like this to see how many pages I have left. I think that's why I like physical copies, but to save me some money, I think a Kobo is the way. Let me know, Kindle or a Kobo. I'm here in Canada, so I'm starting to think a Kobo is a better choice over a Kindle. Anyways, back to the book. So None of This Is True. This book actually had a twist at the end where I'm thinking I'm gonna have to go back and read this again one day, but it's about just a mentally unstable girl who meets another girl, stars her in her podcast, like the mentally stable one stars the mentally unstable one in her podcast. In my opinion, she became a little obsessed, like it got a little crazy. I rated this book 5 stars because it was my first thriller. I don't think I've ever read a thriller before this. I could be lying. But this was a very interesting book. It's definitely a page turner for real. And I think I was sick maybe when I finished this, so I finished it pretty fast because I had nothing else to do. But yeah, I really like this. I think I'm gonna read some more from her. I thought it was just a really easy read. Vocabulary wise, I thought it was a pretty easy read. Another thing I should mention, I think this one's based in the UK. So a lot of like English verbiage, I guess you can say. But I like this book. It was 5 stars. This third read, this was the third book I read this year. It was something that I kept seeing on TikTok. A lot of people kept telling me, you have to read this. It was just recommended all the time. And this is coming from me, like a non-fantasy girl. When I tell you, it was the entire series, I just ate this up. I'm gonna have to read it again next year and maybe the year after and then maybe the year after because I just feel like there's just a lot to unpack with it. But the first book, I'm not gonna lie, started off pretty slowly. And then once it kind of got into it, like middle to the end, I just couldn't put it down. But in the beginning, when the world building is happening, when it's kind of teaching you about like the world, the background, all that kind of stuff, I was so lost. I was lost in the sauce. I was like, what is happening right now? And then the more I kept reading, the more lost I was. And maybe by like page 100 and something, that's when I was starting, that's when I started understanding what was happening. This was the third read of the year, A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. Yeah, this, I don't know. I feel like this altered my brain chemistry in a way as well for fantasy books because I always thought fantasy, whenever I thought fantasy, I thought of Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, that kind of stuff. This was just, especially knowing what I know now, it's so crazy. Like, it was so, the way I was on a certain person's team and the way I got off the team so fast as the series was going on, I was, yeah. And the way I was rooting for her too, it's so crazy. But yeah, this is about Feyre and the magical adventures that she goes on. She made a lot of crazy decisions in my opinion, but this was definitely a 5-star read for me. I just loved it. And this book had, if this even matters to you guys, 419 pages. 100% I rated this 5 stars on Goodreads. I did. So, Court of Thorns and Roses. Book number 4, I brought on vacation because I thought it was gonna be a fun vacation read. I got this book from Costco. I think Costco is getting rid of their book section, which is kind of unfortunate. To make room for alcohol, that's so rude. Anyways, I got this book from Costco and I got it because it had vacation in the title. I was going on vacation at the time. Earlier this year, I went to Mexico and the book was about going to Mexico. So I thought it was gonna be a good read in Mexico. And when I was lounged out on the lawn chair trying to read this, it was so trash. I don't care. This book was actually so trash. The breakup vacation. Yeah, it just wasn't for me. I think she was just so annoying. The thing on the back right here, it says, how far would you go to win back your ex? Girl, I should have known from them when I read it, but I was just more like, oh, I just want to read a vacation about, you know, a book about a vacation in Mexico because I'm in Mexico. It will make me feel connected. It didn't make me feel anything. I didn't even finish this in Mexico. I think maybe I was like 20 pages in, couldn't read it on the plane. I thought it was stupid all the way through. That's just my opinion. There was also a little bit of drama in this book that made me like bump it up a couple stars, I think. But I gave this a 3 on Goodreads. In reality, maybe a 1, a 2 if I was being generous, maybe a 2.5, but yeah, it wasn't my jam. I can't remember what book number we're on, but the next book I read this year is Things We Hide from the Light. So the second book in the series of the, I think it's like Knock Me Out. Yeah, Knock Me Out. So this is the second book in it. This book was about, girl, who's this about again? Oh, this was about Nash and Lena. I enjoyed their story, in my opinion. Nash is the main character in the last book, Knox's brother, and Nash is a police officer. Remember I was telling you about that underlying crime storyline that was happening? He was obviously going to solve it, and Lena is their friend from back in the day. I think she's also into some, girl, you're gonna have to read it. But I liked it, I liked the romance, I loved everything about it. I think this was probably also a 5-star read just because I loved it. I would go back to read this one again. This one had 574 pages. The same Southern lingo happening in this. It was just, in my opinion, I don't think she wanted to get with him in the beginning, but then who could, you know, resist Southern charm? I know I could. If my man's watching this, I'm just kidding. Yes, this was a 5-star read and I read this one in March. The next book I read was also a part of the Knock Me Out series. This is the last book in the series, I'm pretty sure. It's The Things We Left Behind, also by Lucy Score. All 3 of them are by Lucy Score, obviously it's a series. And this one is about Sloane and Lucien. And y'all, throughout the whole series, I was like, why can't they stand each other? What is going on? Like, let's just get it on with. And this was like peak enemies to lovers for sure. You know, technically they were kind of lovers back in the day. Like they were friends or enemies to friends, from friends to lovers, back to enemies for the longest time, and now they're lovers. So this one I want to say was the better written spicy scenes, if that makes any sense. Like the other ones were kind of childish. This one I felt like was a little bit more, you get the point. I liked everything about it. I loved how protective he was about her. And then that's when they solved that storyline crime thing that was happening. So this was probably a 5-star. If I were to read it again, I'd probably give it 5 stars again. I don't know. But yeah, I thought this was 5 stars. And on top of it, I think he was the grumpy and she was the sunshine or something like that. I love grumpy sunshine. I love romance books, okay? Sue me. This next book was a mystery thriller type of deal, I want to say it was. It's Murder in the Family. This one's by Kara Hunter. This one was an interesting read just because I don't think I've ever read a book like this before. And what I mean by that, it's very much like a mixed media book. So there's maps. This is all written in like a format where it's like a script. Like there's names and then there's like what their lines are. I think there's text messages at the end of each chapter. Let me see if I can find like this is an example of like the emails, and it's just the way it's written in the sense of like it's an actual Netflix series, if that makes any sense. That's just the way it was set up. When I first started reading this, the way it took me I think it took me to about like 50 or something pages to get into the way it was written. I wanted to quit. If I'm being honest, I wanted to quit, but I also kind of wanted to figure out like who was the killer. So there's 464 pages in this. I wouldn't say this is truly a 464 page book, just because again, this is how it's written. So there's just a lot of stuff in it. Newspaper articles. This is even like a Reddit page, so you get the point. Very much a mixed media book. By the time I got to the end, like I thought I knew who did it, but then by the time I got to the end, I was kind of shocked. Also, felt like it was kind of predictable, but I wasn't predicting anything. So this was a fun read now that I'm looking back at it. I read this also when I was sick. I want to say I was actually like really sick in this one because I remember vlogging and reading this. But yeah, this was really interesting. I liked it. Would I read something like this again? I would say yes, because it's a good palate cleanser in terms of just only reading romance, and then you know, you get the point. So I think it was a good palate cleanser for sure. I also thought it was an okay read, like an easy read, I would say. This is also based in the UK type of deal, so lots of like UK lingo, English lingo. So I'm pretty sure I gave this 5 stars. I would probably give it 5 stars again. I don't know. Jumping back into the Ahhh series, I read the second one, A Court of Mist and Fury. Yeah, this one altered my brain chemistry for sure. The fact that I'm smiling like this, and I can't even remember 100% of what happened in the book, but it's just the fact that I'm smiling like this makes me feel as if like I love this one. I truly did love this one. I love this one more than the first one. The way she was trying to jump ship, I was encouraging her. I already jumped the ship and I was telling her, come on, let's go. But this one truly was a movie in my head. I loved everything about it. I love the characters. I love the storyline. I love the plot. Like everything was building up. This was just, in my opinion, I just love this. And also I love that she was so, you know, just fearless, because the whole time I was thinking I would never do that. This was 100% a 5-star read. I would give it 100 stars. I would read this again. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna read it next year probably. I would read it over and over and over. At this point, I just read the entirety of the Ahhh series because I was like, why am I waiting? I read the first one as like a little teaser. I was like, wait a second. Now that I know how good this is, I don't wanna read it all in one go because then I won't be able to read it again for the first time, you know what I mean? But then, after A Court of Mist and Fury, I was like, it's game time, let's just finish it. So I read the third one, A Court of Wings and Ruin. Like this is a big girl. This had a lot of pages in it, and it was so crazy. As I was turning the pages, as I was checking to see where my bookmark was, I was wishing it never ended. But yeah, this was truly a movie in my head. Everything that took place, just the plot, everything about it was just, and especially after the world building is done, you're understanding what's going on, you're understanding the characters that are in play. It's just the way that everything unraveled. I was just like, I would 100% read this again, 100%. This had a lot of pages, girl, like 700 pages, I want to say. $6.99, like the last page is $6.99, and I enjoyed every single page. I think this one as well, I can't remember everything that happened in this book. I just know I loved it. But for this one as well, just the way it was written, everything, okay? But this one, it just hit the ground running. Like there was no like, oh yeah, by the way, this is what happened in the last. No, it just took off from the beginning. I was like trying to read it. I was just obsessed. And I remember thinking about this one all the time, especially when I finished reading it. I was just thinking about it. When I was at work, I just always thought, I can't wait to go home so I can read the book. Yeah, page turner for sure. It was 5 stars. I don't even check my Goodreads. It was 100% 5 stars for sure. Next in the series is A Court of Frost and Starlight. This one was a smaller book. It was, in my opinion, just a filler, and honestly, a filler and then maybe like an introduction to the next book. I didn't care much for this book. I can't even lie. Like, am I allowed to, should I spoil? Like, I'm just out here talking about, am I allowed to give spoilers? But basically it's just rebuilding worlds, and yeah, so that one, it was a quick read, I want to say. Not even 300 pages. It's a good filler because obviously you have to read this one, in my opinion. Well, you have to read this one in order to understand like a lot of things that's happening in the last one, but it's very much a filler in my opinion. It was still good. It was a really like feel-good story. I gave it, I think like a 4 star, 5 star, maybe 4 because I was bored. It was still a good book. A Court of Silver Flames. Also a very big boy. This one, it's so funny because I'm actually so proud of the fact that I read some big ass books this year. This one had 757 pages. It wasn't long enough. It wasn't long enough. It just wasn't long enough in my opinion. This one, listen, I cried in I think the 3rd book of Ruin. I'm pretty sure I cried. This one, I don't think maybe I cried. I definitely cried when it was over because I didn't want it to end. I loved Nesta's story and Cassian. Nesta and Cassian. The whole time I was like, Kristen and Cassian. It was a 5 star for me. I don't care. I loved her attitude. I loved his attitude. I loved the spice. I loved everything about it. I was confused. I was happy. I was sad. I was mad. I was a lot of emotions in this. This one I would read again unprovoked. Unprovoked for sure. It's so crazy because when I finished this book, and last page, and I knew I was approaching the last pages, I was getting so sad. And then I don't think I've ever experienced a book hangover before, because I just feel every book I've read, I was kind of like, okay, this was nice. Okay, let's move on. I've never necessarily had an attachment to a book or series. This was just like, when the series ended, I was like, bro, what do you do with yourself? And then that's when I went online and I saw that other people were talking about the fact that she has other book series, other books. And I'm just not ready to dive in because I know I won't be able to read it again for the first time. You know what I mean? It's so weird, but I feel like experiencing things for the first time is just so special, okay? This was definitely special. So I already know this was 5 stars. I would highly recommend that you guys read the ACOTAR series, especially if you're not a fantasy girl. If you were to tell me, oh, what wings, I'd be like, what are you saying? But now, talking about, tell me more. I'm just gonna do the next 4 together because I don't think I need to touch on every single one of them because they're all pretty much the same. So the next series I read is the Kings of Sin series. She's still working on these actually. I think the next one is coming out in January or something like that. I'm gonna pick it up, I don't care. I'm gonna pick it up and read it, even though they're all pretty similar. But we have King of Wrath, King of Pride, King of Greed, King of Sloth. If I were to tell you which one was my absolute favorite, there's 4 male characters. They're all friends, I'm pretty sure. Like, they're all connected in some way. And then the girls, they're all friends. If my memory serves me correct, I'm pretty sure they're all friends. I don't know, they all met in some way. It's so crazy because I read this series before, you guys are gonna see it later anyways, the Twisted series. And I wish I read the Twisted series first, but I saw King of Wrath first. I think I was reading some things online about how the Twisted series kind of sucked. So I was like, okay, why waste my time there when I can just jump in here? When I was reading the Twisted series, I was like, I should have read these first. But anyways, I read the King of Wrath series. Out of all these characters, girl, who are these characters? This one was Dante and Vivian. I like them. Kai and Isabella. I would say they're at the bottom of my triangle here. Dominic and Alessandra, I would put them at number 3. Dante would be number 2. Kai and Isabella would be number 4. And then, I don't care, my number 1 was King of Sloth with Xavier and Sloane. A lot of people felt like they lacked like a connection or whatever. I ate it up, I don't care, I liked it. Yeah, so this was basically the Kings of Sins series. All the guys are billionaires in some sort. All the girls, I think they're also billionaires except for Isabella. It's a typical romance in my opinion. And I really like the way Anna Huang writes. It's not for everybody, but it's for me, okay? These are pretty spicy, by the way. I read another thriller to cleanse the palate, The Inmate by Frida McFadden. I had never read a Frida McFadden book. I wanna say this book was pretty fast paced. It didn't have any like fluff in the beginning or anything like that. It just jumped into the story. This, as you guys can see, is not a large read. I think this is only like 200, oh, it's 300, almost 330 pages. The writing is very easy to read. It's a quick read, in my opinion. You could definitely probably read this in like 2 days, 3 days max. And I think I read this over a course of like a week or something like that because I gotta go to work. If I could just sit at home and read all day, like I would be reading a lot more, but I had to go to work. But this was actually a really interesting book. The twist was also very interesting. I feel like I would read this again for sure. I feel like all thriller mystery books I would reread again to see what I missed because I feel like I missed quite a bit in this one because I was reading it so fast because I just wanted to know what happened. But yeah, this was a good read. It was a quick read. It was my first Frida McFadden read. I felt like it was a little outrageous, but everybody says that's just how Frida McFadden is. So 5 out of 5, I think I gave it 5 stars. I got another Frida McFadden book that I wanted to read over like the spooky season, but I didn't end up reading it, but I'll read it soon. But yeah, The Inmate. I don't know what book number this is. Okay, this next book I actually hated. I hated this book so bad. I didn't want to finish it, but for some reason, like my mentality, my mental is just like, bro, you have to finish the book. I feel like I can't just not finish a book and not waste my life on it, if that makes any sense. If I, like looking back, I wish that maybe I should have went in with a better attitude. I thought I was in the book with a better attitude, but I hated the book. Everything about the book, hated it. And this is You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty. I got this from HomeSense for $7.99. I hated this book. I don't care. I think I gave this like 2 stars. It's just the storyline, and I'm just gonna spoil this book for you because I don't want you to read it. I don't care. Honestly, I feel like some people would actually like this book. It's very poetic. There's a lot of poetry. I just hated the profanity, in my opinion. I know that sounds crazy, especially considering a lot of the books I read, but for me, whenever it was just, I just felt like it was just so aggressive. I feel like I'm just used to, I don't even know what I'm used to, okay? It just wasn't this. And it was about a girl and her best friend, and she hooks up with some guy in the bathroom. Right there, I was like, ugh, I hate this book. And then the guy has like a best friend. She ends up like not getting with the best friend, but I don't even know. The best friend falls in love with her, was all like, come with me back to my country for the summer. I can't even tell you the story properly because I was skimming. I hated this book. She gets there, she realizes like his dad is a chef, like a Michelin star chef. I hated him. I hated this book. She stayed at his house for the entirety of whatever, girl. They ended up falling in love. The guy freaks out because that's my dad. I just hated this book. Yeah, if I could, I think I was being generous when I gave it like 2 stars because it was a little messy, and I kind of liked it, really didn't like it. I don't know. Am I becoming a peaceful person that I don't like messy situations? Hated this book. This book took me so long to finish as well, just because I just didn't want to read anymore. I feel like that's so crazy. If a book makes you not want to read, that's just how I feel about it. But this book was 279 pages. A Court of Silver Flames, you guys saw it. That book was almost 800 pages, 700 and something pages, right? I read that book in like 3 days. I read that book so fast. This book, it literally took me mad long to finish because I just didn't want to look at it anymore. But in my head, I was like, bro, you have to finish the book. Don't read it. So after that book, that's when I was like, you know what? I need to read a romance that wasn't like that, okay? So I'm just gonna do all 4 of these together because it's a series. They're all pretty much the same. This is the Twisted series by Anna Huang. I don't care, y'all. I like her writing. It's for me. Okay, I like the romance. I like everything about it. This was about kind of like the same type of stories as the Kings of Sin series. I wish I read these first because Anna Huang, I think, has created a universe that all the characters are interconnected somehow. Reading the Kings of Sin series and then reading this after and seeing like the characters from that series pop up in here first, I was like, oh, I made a mistake. So we have Twisted Love, I think Twisted Games, Twisted Lies, and Twisted Hate. Out of all of them, Twisted Lies, for sure. I want to say Twisted Lies, and then Twisted Hate, Twisted Games, and then Twisted Love. This book, Mr. Christian Harper. Listen, when Stella was mad at him and he was all like crying, all disheveled, bring me back, I was like, girl, just take him back. Just take him back. I was obsessed with that story. I don't care what any of you guys say, is her name Jules? Pretty sure her name's Jules, right? Yeah, Josh and Jules. I like their story too. I liked Bridget and, is it Reeson? Yo, who's in this book? Oh, his name is Reese. It's crazy because I love Reese in here. I love Reese and Akatar too. And then the first one was Ava and Alex, which they're cute or whatever. But yeah, Mr. Christian Harper. And by the way, I think she designed these to also be standalones, but read them all. Just read them all, okay? And this was the Twisted series. Mr. Christian Harper. Mr. Christian Harper. I told her take him back, and she made him wait for so long. First of all, Ava made Alex wait over a year. These women are strong. I'm not. So that whole series, to me, 5 stars. 5 stars all around. I liked it. It made me happy. It made me smile. It made me like sad, mad. You get the point. I liked it. Okay, last book of the year that I read. I'm currently reading book number 2. Fourth Wing. Isn't this just a gorgeous book? I didn't read it with the cover on because that would be so insane, but I liked it. I honestly loved it. I was so confused like when it first started, but I loved everything about it. I liked how she was determined, how she was strong-willed, how she was independent, how she like fought for herself. I loved everything about that, and it reminded me I need to be a strong woman. But yeah, I love this book. It's actually a pretty easy read, I will say. This is an easy read. Obviously, the world building is always going to be like a learning curve for everybody, but once you kind of get into it, it's just fantastic. I don't care, y'all. I hate Dane. Right now, I'm reading the second one, Iron Flame. I think I'm only at like chapter 3 just because I've been so busy with work, so I obviously can't review it. And along with that, book number 3 in this Empyrean series is coming out in January, and that is so exciting just because I'm going to the book release. Is that weird to say? I'm going to the book release. So that's actually gonna be so much fun. I think it starts at like 11 p.m. It ends at 12:15, like midnight, and you get your book. And it's so crazy because I already pre-ordered Onyx Storm, which is the 3rd book. So I guess I need to return a copy. But yeah, this is gorgeous. I got this, I wanna say I got this one from Costco. I got one of them from Costco. I think I wanna say the other one, Iron Flame, I got from Costco, and then I just went and picked up Fourth Wing. I waited to read this because I wanna read things and experience things for the first time. So I feel like, I don't know, I was just waiting. But now that I read it, I'm so happy that I read it. I'm so happy that I read it closer to the release of the 3rd book, because it's like I can jump from the 1st book to the 2nd book right into the 3rd book series. But yeah, really easy read, very descriptive. I felt like I could imagine everything in my head. Mind you, when I was imagining certain things or pronouncing certain things and then I heard the audiobook, I was like, girl. I feel like whenever I read certain things, and I could also say this for the Akatar series. I read the Akatar series, and I think after the 1st book, A Court of Thorns and Roses, after I butchered their names, and I go on TikTok, they're talking about Resand. I was like, who? I read the books calling him Resand. So even in this book, when like Tarn was popping up and Ryerson, the way I was reading it, like Riorson, and then the audiobook was Ryerson, Segale. I was not saying it like that. So I also like the audiobooks. Oh, there's actually one book I started on audiobook but didn't finish. 2 actually. Priest, was not into it at all. It was just not for me. And Collide, which is, in my opinion, that book is so dumb, but because I started it and used up all my Spotify hours, I feel like I need to finish it. There's only like a couple more chapters, but it sucked, in my opinion. That's probably like 3 stars or whatever. And it's just the voices in audiobooks that throw me off. In the Collide audiobook, and just hearing like, I feel like if the guy's talking from the girl point of view, why can't they just have the guy talk from his point of, like his dialogue, you know what I mean? Instead it's the girl being like, yo, and then be like, and then I said, like, girl. So those are the 22 books that I read this year. I hope you guys enjoyed. This was not a good review at all, probably. I know, this is my first time. I just decided to turn on the camera and just word vomit about nothing. So I hope you enjoyed. And with that, I'll probably see you next year for another book review of books I read, or if I decide to get better at this, I'll probably drop a few during the year. So let me know if you liked the video. And with that, y'all, I hope you guys have a happy holidays and Merry Christmas. Don't forget to keep the Christ in Christmas.